So, this week's AEW Dynamite kicked off with the Five Labors of Jericho, Chapter 3, where Chris Jericho faced off against the returning Juventud Guerrera, and the stipulation was that Jericho had to win with the top rope move. And this was pretty cool, seeing a WCW rivalry reignited, and there was a pretty close finish towards the end when Juvi hit the Juvi driver on Jericho, but Jericho kicked out, hit Juvi with the Judas effect, and then went to the top rope and hit a flying top rope Judas effect to complete the stipulation and get the win. But then Wardlow came out and dispatched Juvi with the F10 and then knocked Jericho out with the Casualty of War. And then MJF said that for next week's Labor, Chris Jericho would have to face Wardlow, but the stipulation for that match is that MJF is the special guest referee. And then Dasha Gonzalez had an interview backstage with the Lucha Brothers, and much like last week where Pac was being interviewed and the Lucha Brothers were missing, this week Pac was missing, and once again it was because of Andrade El Idolo changing the transportation plans. And Andrade tried to recruit the Lucha Brothers again, but the Lucha Brothers once again said that they worked for no one. And then Tony Schiavone was backstage with the Dark Order, where Hangman Adam Page came up and said that he needed to split off from the group and do things on his own. So I guess now Page is 100% going back to being a singles competitor, and he won't have the Dark Order around for help anymore. And then we had a 6-man tag team match where Eddie Kingston, Jon Moxley, and Darby Allin took on the debuting Daniel Garcia and 2.0. And there was one point in the match where one of the guys was sort of geeking out over Sting, and Darby came out with the Tope Suicida from out of nowhere, and he just looked like he was shot out of a cannon with how fast he came. But at the end of the match, Moxley took out Garcia with the Paradigm Shift, and then Darby Allin followed it up with a coffin drop to get the win. Then the Elite were backstage playing basketball, and they basically touted how good they were, and I'm pretty curious to see what their championship matches will be at All Out next month now that Adam Page and the Dark Order are out of the question because of last week. And then Christian Cage took on the Blade, and this continued the story where the Blade knocked out Christian Cage with a pair of brass knucks, and towards the end of the match, the Blade would try to use the brass knucks again by distracting the referee and using the knucks when the referee wasn't looking, but Christian caught the Blade with a spear and pinned him for the win. And then Tony Schiavone interviewed Dr. Britt Baker, and I have to say I really love the friendship between Tony Schiavone and Britt because I think it's just so cute how they're best friends. But Red Velvet came out and said that with her record, she deserved a challenge for the championship, and Britt Baker accepted the challenge and said that they would fight for the championship on the debut episode of Rampage next Friday in Britt's hometown of Britsburg. And then Britt laid out Red Velvet with a curb stomp, which I felt was kind of out of character because if she's supposed to be a babyface now, that doesn't seem like a very babyface move to lay out your opponent like that. And it's especially weird because I'm pretty sure Rebel actually made the first move when she tried to attack Red Velvet with her crutch. So if anything, I'm kind of confused because babyfaces usually don't make the first move in attacking somebody, but we'll see how the championship match goes in Britsburg next Friday. And then we had a backstage segment where Chavo Guerrero brought over Fuego del Sol to work for Andrade, and Andrade basically attacked him and laid him out and threatened the Lucha Brothers, basically trying to force them to work for him. And then next, American Top Team founder Dan Lambert said that he hadn't forgotten what the Murder Hawk Lance Archer did to him at Road Rager, and said that next week he'll be bringing backup to make Lance Archer pay for what he did. So I honestly thought that this was like a one-off thing where they just brought in Lambert to have some fun, but I guess they might actually be building a storyline with this. And then Tony Schiavone tried to interview Adam Page in the ring, where he was interrupted by the Elite, and the Elite basically told Adam Page what a failure he was, and after looking at what the Elite has turned into, how Adam Page simply doesn't fit into the group anymore because he wasn't a champion or a winner like them. And finally, Adam Page snapped and slapped Omega, and the Elite quickly ganged up on him, and then the Dark Order tried to come out to help him, but after what Adam Page told them earlier in the night, they decided against it and returned backstage. But Frankie Kazarian, not being with the Dark Order, decided to come out instead to try to help Adam Page, but he was quickly disposed of, and then they beat Adam Page down with the Magic Killer and multiple V-triggers from the Young Bucks, and then Kenny Omega finished Adam Page off by smashing him across the head with his AEW World Championship. So I guess we're going to have to see how Adam Page gets back into the world title picture, because I think he will eventually become world champion, but it's just a matter of how, because he obviously can't challenge for the title anymore at All Out. And then we had our TNT Championship match with Miro facing off against Lee Johnson, who had Dustin Rhodes to accompany him. And for some reason, I felt like this kind of was going to be a squash match, but Lee Johnson actually put up a pretty good fight. But in the end, Miro locked in his game over submission maneuver and forced Lee to tap out. And then Tony Schiavone interviewed Christian Cage and informed him that he was the new #1 contender for the AEW World Championship. So I guess that will be the match at All Out, is Kenny Omega versus Christian Cage, which I like because it's also another match which was a long time coming, because when Christian Cage first arrived, he teased that he would be facing Kenny Omega for the AEW World title. And then there was that Battle Royal, which Jungle Boy won by eliminating Christian Cage last to face Kenny Omega in an AEW World Championship match. So I'm glad Christian Cage is finally getting his opportunity, even though I honestly can't see Christian Cage beating Omega for the AEW World title. And then we had an NWA Women's World Championship Eliminator match where the Bunny took on Layla Hirsch. And honestly, I love the fact that AEW is just branching out and looking at other wrestling organizations that they can work with and putting some of their championships on Dynamite. Honestly, when they talked about kicking down the forbidden door and starting to work with other wrestling organizations, I thought to myself, that's pretty cool, because the more wrestling from more places we see, the better. Instead of, just pretending like your wrestling organization is the only wrestling organization that exists and claiming that you're open to working with other wrestling organizations when it's been very, very clear over the past number of years that you've done anything but that, because you hardly mention any of them by name on your weekly television programming, and when you do, it's such a huge deal because you never do it. But anyways, Layla Hirsch locked in an arm breaker and forced the Bunny to tap out, and then the NWA Women's Champion Camille came into the ring and stared down Layla, which I thought was kind of funny because she was just towering over her. So it would be interesting to see these two women face off for the NWA Women's World title just because of the sheer size difference. And then in our main event, Tommy End made his debut against Cody Rhodes, who was also accompanied by Dustin Rhodes like Lee Johnson was earlier in the night, and Tommy End just made a sick-ass entrance like he always does. And in this match, Tommy End just completely squashed Cody Rhodes, which I was not expecting, because Cody being one of the top guys within the company, I was expecting would at least put up somewhat of a fight, but Tommy End worked on Cody Rhodes' leg, blasted him through a table, and then finished him off with his spinning heel kick, and in a very cocky way just put his foot on Cody's chest and pinned him for the win, which I thought was badass as fuck. And this match, for some reason, felt very reminiscent of the Undertaker-Shawn Michaels match from WrestleMania 25, mostly because of the light and dark elements at play here. And then after the match, Cody Rhodes seemingly made a retirement speech where Cody talked about how he created this new wrestling brand with Matt, Nick, and Kenny, and how there were a ton of people that didn't take them seriously. And 2 years ago, I specifically remember Jericho doing that infamous podcast with Jon Moxley right as he got out of WWE, and they described this new promotion as a sort of alternative to the wrestling fan who felt that mainstream wrestling had gotten kind of stale and boring. And Cody Rhodes said in his speech tonight that they're no longer the alternative, they're the competition, which is damn true, because if you looked at the people who are in the arena and were chanting AEW, then you would know that this is a fucking movement that is coming at a wrestling organization that has gotten so fucking lame and stale and childish and But Cody Rhodes basically said that the fans have made his life incredibly special with how far his career has come and what he's been able to do in it. And then he proceeded to take his ring boots off, which is the time-honored tradition when a wrestler retires that they leave their ring boots in the ring. But before he could finish doing that, Tommy End came up from behind and attacked him with the crutch and laid him out. So I imagine that Cody Rhodes isn't actually going to be retiring now, because he probably has to continue this rivalry and at least finish it before he retires. So overall, a good show this week, and I'm really excited for next week, which is going to be the first week where we see two main AEW shows, Dynamite and Rampage, put on. So I'm really excited to see what they have in store then.